Imagine a woman who is desperate, a mother whose heart is breaking because her daughter is suffering terribly. Imagine that same woman being ignored, dismissed, even insulted by the very person she came to for help. Would you give up? Would you walk away, crushed and humiliated? Or would you hold on, refusing to let go until you got the miracle you were seeking? This is the story of the Canaanite woman in Matthew 15, a story of persistence, faith, and the courage to believe even when the odds are stacked against you. Her encounter with Jesus is short, just a few verses. But within those lines lies one of the most remarkable demonstrations of faith in the entire Bible. The story begins in a region far from Jerusalem, far from the familiar towns where Jesus usually ministered. He had withdrawn to the district of Tyre and Sidon, Gentile territory, a land outside the boundaries of Israel. Too many Jews of that time, it was a land associated with outsiders, foreigners, idol worshippers, people considered unworthy of God's covenant blessings. And it's here in this unlikely place that a woman enters the story. She is unnamed in Matthew's account, known only as a Canaanite woman. Her very identity carried centuries of tension and hostility. The Canaanites had been Israel's ancient enemies, symbols of everything unclean and unholy. 2 Jewish years, even the word Canaanite conjured images of idolatry and moral corruption. Yet it is this woman, this outsider, who approaches Jesus with a cry that would not be ignored. She comes not timidly, but boldly crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession." Her plea is raw and urgent. Notice that she doesn't come asking for herself. She is pleading for her child. Any mother knows the pain of watching her child suffer. Her daughter's torment drove her past all barriers of culture, race, and religion. She addressed Jesus with a messianic title, Son of David, acknowledging him not only as a miracle worker, but as the promised king. Somehow this woman, who by all accounts should have been excluded from Israel's promises, recognized who Jesus truly was. But what happens next is startling. The text says that Jesus did not answer a word. Silence. The kind of silence that cuts deep, that makes you question whether your prayers are even heard. Imagine pouring your heart out and being met with nothing. No comfort, no encouragement, no assurance, only silence. But this woman did not stop. She kept crying out, so much so that the disciples grew annoyed and urged Jesus, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." They wanted convenience, not compassion. To them, she was a nuisance, an interruption to their journey. But to this mother, nothing was more important than her daughter's healing. Rejection by men did not stop her. Silence from Jesus did not stop her. She pressed on. Then Jesus finally spoke. And his words are not what we would expect. He said, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." On the surface, this was a dismissal. It was as if he was saying, "You're not my mission. You don't qualify. The blessings I bring are not for you." Yet even then the woman did not retreat. Instead, she came closer. She knelt before him, a posture of humility and worship, and pleaded again, "Lord, help me." She did not bring arguments, credentials, or worthiness. She brought only desperation and faith. What follows is perhaps the most shocking moment in the story. Jesus replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." To modern ears, this sounds harsh, even insulting. To call someone a dog in that culture was to call them unclean, unworthy. Yet the word Jesus used here was not the harsh street dog term, but rather a softer word, more like little dogs or household pets. Still, the implication was clear. The bread, the blessings, belonged to the children of Israel first, not to Gentiles like her. Most people would have been crushed, offended, and walked away in shame. But this woman saw something in those words, a sliver of hope, a window of opportunity, and she seized it with brilliance and courage. "Yes, Lord," she said, "but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Do you see the power of her reply? She did not argue against Jesus. She agreed with him. She acknowledged that she had no rightful claim, no entitlement to the covenant blessings of Israel. And yet she insisted that even a crumb from his hand was enough. She turned what looked like rejection into an opportunity to demonstrate relentless faith. She was saying, "I don't need the whole loaf. I don't need the feast. Just one crumb of your power is more than enough to drive the demon from my daughter." At that moment, the atmosphere shifted. Jesus' silence had tested her perseverance. His words had tested her humility. And now her faith had triumphed. Jesus looked at her and declared, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And instantly her daughter was healed. One mother's persistence, one woman's boldness, broke through centuries of division and prejudice. In that moment, an outsider became an insider, not by birthright but by faith. This story is extraordinary for many reasons. First, it shows us the heart of a mother. Love for her child pushed this woman past every barrier, cultural, religious, and even personal humiliation. She refused to give up because she believed Jesus was her only hope. Second, it reveals the depth of true faith. Faith is not fragile. Faith doesn't give up when heaven seems silent. Faith presses in. Faith keeps asking. Faith kneels down and says, "Lord, help me," even when the answer seems delayed. Third, it demonstrates that God's grace is bigger than human boundaries. Jesus came first to Israel, but his mission was always for the whole world. This encounter was a glimpse of that greater mission, a foreshadowing of the gospel breaking beyond Israel to include every tribe, nation, and tongue. But there's something else here that speaks deeply to us as women, as people who often feel overlooked, dismissed, or unworthy. This woman was nameless, voiceless in society, doubly marginalized as both a Gentile and a female. And yet she is remembered for her faith. Jesus did not commend many people with the words, "Great is your faith." In fact, there are only two recorded instances, this Canaanite woman and the Roman centurion. Both outsiders, both people considered unworthy by religious standards. Yet both recognized who Jesus truly was and refused to let go until they received his blessing. For us today, her story is a challenge and an encouragement. How many of us have prayed and felt only silence? How many of us have faced rejection or dismissal when we needed compassion? How many times have we been tempted to give up when the miracle seemed out of reach? The Canaanite woman shows us another way. She teaches us to keep pressing in, to turn even apparent rejection into opportunity, to believe that even a crumb of God's power can change everything. Her words echo across the centuries, reminding us that true faith is not about demanding what we think we deserve, but about trusting God's abundance even when we feel we deserve nothing. And isn't that the essence of the gospel? None of us are entitled to God's grace. We are all outsiders, undeserving of his mercy. Yet through faith we are brought near, welcomed to the table, and blessed beyond measure. The Canaanite woman reminds us that the door of God's kingdom is open wider than we think, that his mercy spills over the boundaries we draw, and that his power can reach anyone who dares to believe. So what does this mean for you? Maybe you're a mother praying for your child, longing for healing, restoration, or deliverance. Maybe you've faced silence in your prayers and wondered if God is listening. Maybe if you felt dismissed, unworthy, or like an outsider in your own story. Take heart. This woman's faith is an invitation to you. Keep asking. Keep seeking. Keep pressing in. The silence is not rejection. The delay is not denial. Sometimes God allows the testing of our faith so that its beauty can shine all the more brightly when the answer comes. And when it does, the testimony will not only be about the miracle you received, but about the faith that carried you there. The Canaanite woman shows us that even crumbs from the Master's table are enough to heal, enough to restore, enough to deliver, enough to transform your story. If crumbs are enough, imagine what abundance he has prepared for you as his beloved child. This story is not just about one mother's desperate cry. It is about the God who hears, the Savior who responds, and the faith that refuses to let go. It is about you and me, and the assurance that when we come to Jesus, no matter how unworthy we may feel, his mercy is greater than we could ever imagine. So next time you feel like giving up, remember her. Remember the nameless Canaanite woman who would not stop until her daughter was healed. Remember the faith that turned silence into a miracle. And let her story inspire you to keep holding on, keep believing, and keep trusting that God's mercy is for you too. Because just one crumb of his grace can change everything.